Great way to start this first broadcast back. Anyways, I'm talking about backing up your photography, backing up your videography, basically how we can keep you from losing all of your files. And the overall goal to all of this is to make the creative side of you free and not have you strapped to technology and backing things up and doing all that kind of stuff. The main thing here is that we can make this as easy on you as possible. So I'm going to inundate you with a lot of information. Remember, there will always be backups in the video description, and you can always ask questions on Patreon, and you can ask questions here in the chat live on YouTube. Hi guys, yes, I hit the right button so you could hear me. So bear with me, we'll get her going. So the whole idea though is essentially to show you all the options, and then you can ask me questions and I can try to basically find a system that will work for you and get the creative side of you going, and let the machines take care of the mundane stuff that we don't want to take care of ourselves. All right, so we are in my Lightroom catalog right now, and that number that you see under all photographs over there on the left is my last 8 years of work. So 282,481 photos. That is a lot of megabytes of storage. In fact, I think it's somewhere around 11 terabytes total. And it was, I think, just about a year ago, I had a hard drive that was full of information of graphic design that I did. So it isn't a photo I can go take another photo of. This was stuff that I had hand drawn for a client, a logo and a poster and some brochures, and I had them on this portable hard drive because I had taken them to the customer, and the portable hard drive died. And I sent it out to have them look at it, and of course the cheap fix they couldn't do. So the expensive fix was $1,500 to fix the hard drive, and I couldn't do it. But that led me to think, how do you know when a hard drive is about to die? Is there any way to know? Well, obviously we're not going to know if you drop it or something like that, but hard drives usually have a life, and they start kind of erroring out or having problems or making noises before they start to really go. So there is that little window where you can get your files out of there. But that's a risk because sometimes that window is very small. And if you are maybe have a hard drive running at night or something and it dies overnight and you miss that window, you've lost your files. So the idea is that you should probably back up as you go. So incremental backups are what we're going to deal with pretty much here. So I decided that I didn't want to let 8 years of my photography just basically go if there's some little problem with a hard drive somewhere. So I started talking to friends, and a friend told me about CrashPlan for my offsite, which is offsite is when you back up to a cloud or you back up to a server farm, and it sends it over your internet connection, and you set it up so that it works while you're sleeping. So when you go to bed at night, the program kicks in, starts copying all your files off, and then in the morning it stops doing that so you can have your internet back and all of that. And it, over a course of, like for me, who didn't start early, and I started in the middle of all of this about 4 years ago, it took, well, it's still copying. So it's taken all of this time to copy these files, but they're being saved, and I know that at some point they're going to finish finally. CrashPlan cost about $59 a year, which is, wow, for offsite backup, $59. You can't buy insurance for that kind of money for a year. So CrashPlan is awesome. I do have a referral code that I can hook you guys up with. It works on a Mac, works on a PC, works on a Linux machine. It allows you to do backups of not only your photos, but any file that you have on your system. I have a lot of 4K video. I shoot with my drone all the time, as you guys know, and those files are huge. And I mean, you think a photo is around 25 megabytes and a video file is around 25 gigabytes. So I've accrued a lot of videos as well. So this is kind of only half of my library that I need to back up altogether. And I just wanted to show you, you know how when you close Lightroom, every once in a while it says, do you want to do a backup? Well, that backup is actually your catalog. And your catalog contains all of your edits that you've done on your photos that you haven't exported. So when you make an edit in Lightroom, or other software as well, other software does this too. It's called a non-destructive edit, which means you can have history and you can go back and you can undo things and change things without hurting the original file. And that's saved in a catalog file, which is a database, and it's also saved in a little file called an XMP file. And those need to be backed up. So when Lightroom closes about once a month, it nags you with a little screen that says, would you like to update? And I put it off all the time, which is bad. But tonight I'm going to show you a quick and simple way that you can back up your Lightroom catalog. Now this is step one. This doesn't cover your photos. If your photos get lost, that's a different story. But this will be all of your edits and all of your arranging that you've done and your flags and your stars and your metadata, all of that. I'm going to show you that tonight to get you started. So this is just going to get you started in backing up things. I personally use Dropbox for my offsite backup of just my Lightroom catalog. So that's all we're dealing with is just the catalog tonight. So Dropbox is fairly inexpensive. You're going to need to buy probably the bigger account. I pay $99 a year. So here's my accrued cost for my business. I pay $99 a year for my catalog backups and to share files with other people. That's what I use Dropbox for. Secure. It's good for podcasts and shows because I can send people a request folder and they can just dump their files in it and I have them for the show, that sort of thing. And then I spend $59 on Crash Plan, and that does all of my other data, my documents, my important business documents, my photos, my videos, everything else goes to Crash Plan. So between the two, we're talking about $149 investment per year for some basic insurance. Now, does that solve everything? Absolutely not. It's in this day and age, we do what we call triple redundancy, which means that we have our original copies, we make another copy, and then we put a copy out off-site. So, God forbid something should happen to our home, a flood or a fire or anything like that, we've got a safe copy in a server farm protected in a bunker somewhere that we can retrieve. It's not going to be easy to retrieve. It's going to be slow, but at least you know it's safe and you can get your stuff back. So this first part is Dropbox. So I'm going to show you how that works. You get a little app for your computer. You go to Dropbox.com, sign up for an account. I can send you an email, which you can then send to your friends, which is awesome. And they give you like 5 gigabytes free for every person that signs up, which is great because it's free for life. So you can make your space without paying for by getting your friends to get on Dropbox, which is always great. So let me I'm not going to sell that to you. You go check it out. You can also use Google Drive. Google Drive comes with 5 or 10 gigabytes now of space, I think, for your files. You're going to need probably about 25 gigabytes to store at least your last 2 or 3 catalogs. I like to keep 3 catalogs in storage. And then as I put a new one in, I lop the last one off. So the copy goes well. I know everything's okay with the Lightroom comes back and reports to you if it's backed up properly. Providing everything goes good and it backs up properly, I try to just save 3 catalogs. I don't save years of catalogs. It doesn't make any sense because it's the same data copied over and over and over, just things are added to it. So 3 is redundant enough. So what this is going to do is it's going to save it to your computer, and then it's also going to save it to another computer that I have in the house, and it's going to save it offline. So if you have 2 computers in your house, you install Dropbox on each one and you sign in with the same account on both of them. This is normal. This is what you're supposed to do with Dropbox. It's not a hack or anything like that. And it syncs your files. So if you change a file, it'll automatically copy that file to the next computer, as long as the file is newer or changed. So it knows, it's smart, it knows that. And while it does that, it also copies it to the cloud, which is your account online. So you automatically have 3 copies of the file, just like that. So I'm going to show you, I've got Dropbox installed. It appears in the taskbar. Now on Mac, it's a little different. It'll appear in the taskbar on the Mac. I know you can't see my little teeny Mac over here, but trust me, any of this stuff tonight, I'll tell you if it doesn't work on a Mac, because I know we have a lot of Mac users out there. And if the Mac users need help, this is obviously on a PC, but if you need help, please ask questions in Patreon or ask them here in YouTube. YouTube's going to be tough because I'd have to do a little research for you. I've already done some that I'm going to show you guys tonight. But if you do have questions on the Mac stuff, go to Patreon, send me put a post up, a live post, and I'll answer it, and then other people will learn from that as well. That's the great thing about Patreon, is that it's a nice forum that we can all share our learning. All right, so let's get to Dropbox. So when you install Dropbox, it makes a folder on your computer. And this is important to figure out where that folder is at. What I did is I moved my folder to an external hard drive that I knew was fast and good. So you can do that in the app. And if you need to learn how to do that, it's pretty simple. You click on the little app, and you open the little gear on the app, and you click your preferences, and then you tell it to go to the account, and here's a place for moving it to another location. I'm not going to get into that because it's just, Google it. It'll show you how to do it. It's super simple. So I moved my folder, and here I have my Lightroom backups. And I just made a folder in there called LR Backups. And that's on my local hard drive. So once I've got that done, I can go ahead and close the folder for Dropbox, and then I come over to Lightroom. So Lightroom will nag you about doing a backup. If it's just did that and you closed it and you said, don't nag me anymore, or don't ever nag me, or if you turned it off, you can go to Catalog Settings. And then under Catalog Settings, under the General tab, you'll see down here Backup Catalog, and it says once a month. Maybe you have this set to never. All you need to do is just basically say when the next exits. So Lightroom just exits this time, you can click that off and it will trigger. Now, I've been bad and I haven't done my backups. So for me, I'm going to just close Lightroom and it's going to yell at me. So here we go. All right, there it's yelling at me. Please back up your catalog. It's been a long, long time. All right, so you can see that the backup folder right now is not the same as the folder I had open. I had a folder open called I and Dropbox and all that stuff. So all you need to do, okay, is choose that folder, your Dropbox folder. So all I'm going to do is go to that drive where I made my Dropbox folder, and it can be in the default position. You don't have to move it. I just moved it because it's on a fast hard drive. There's my folder right there, let me get Dropbox, and then LR Backups. There's my folder. I'm going to select that folder. Okay, so when I hit backup right now, what's going to happen is Lightroom's going to copy it to my hard drive locally where I have my Dropbox folder. The little app is going to see that there's a new file that's been inserted into the Dropbox folder, and it immediately will start copying that off to the cloud and to my other computer. So automatically, all I did is set this up once. Once you do this, you don't have to set it up ever again. If it says do a backup, you hit backup, off your file goes. There's no setup, there's no anything else. So the whole goal here is set it up once, and then don't worry about it. It's all good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit backup. Now, one thing might happen. The video might get really bad, which means I got to throttle my Dropbox connection a little bit, but I think I have it set up right. So let's try this. I'm going to go ahead and hit backup. And there we go. It's going to check my catalog integrity. It's going to back up. So it's doing checksums right now to make sure everything is good. And then it's going to send the file. And then it's going to make sure that the file went to Dropbox in good shape. And then it'll go ahead and close Lightroom. So while that's happening, we're going to let that happen. And then I'm going to show you how it appears in Dropbox and then how it appears online. And you've heard me speak of another computer. Now you can just use another laptop with some hard drive space on it, or another personal computer in your house. You you can use any of that stuff for backup. I have a purpose-built system that does all of my backup. It does all of the media serving for my house. It's basically a server, as we call them, that I have parked in a room, which basically is cooled and all that kind of stuff, and it's protected. I have a little thermometer on the wall over there that's telling me that the current temperature is 26 degrees Celsius in that room, so it's nice and cool. And I have a screen over here that reads out and tells me all about what's on that machine. I'm going to get into that a little later, but first we're going to talk about things you can buy off the shelf, because not everybody wants to build a system or have a system built. So I'm going to talk a little bit about backup systems that you can buy. So if you don't have another computer, that's fine. You can buy a little box that will do the same exact thing. It's purpose-built to do nothing but receive files and then either make a cloud copy of it or whatever, just like I have set up. I chose not to go with a pre-made system for a couple of reasons. I couldn't find one or afford one actually big enough. I didn't want to go with 10 terabyte drives. Personally, right now, I have 35 terabytes of backup space, and it's over half used right now, and I don't have a lot of things backed up to it that still need to get over there. So I wanted a big enough system, though, that could do more than just backups. I'm a cable cutter, so I don't have any cable TV in my house. We have all of our movies from our DVDs and everything are all put onto this server, and any TV in our house can stream these movies anywhere in high definition, and we can watch them whenever we want. We have Hulu that streams to any television and DVR, and now there's live TV that you can actually get through this system as well, whereas these boxes I'm going to show you can't do that. They have a few apps and appliances that will run on them, but they're kind of restricted to doing just a backup. So a system like I'm talking about, it's about $3,500 built, whereas these systems can be a little less expensive, but they're going to be smaller and do a lot less. So let's just talk about desktop NAS. Now, NAS, you've probably heard that before. That stands for network backup. So it's network attached storage. I'll get it. And basically what it is you have an Ethernet cable that plugs into your modem or into your router in your house, and this becomes another appliance. So it becomes a disk drive that you can address through a little app that you put on your computer, and you can send your files over there for storage. So they have a lot of different ways to go. This is rack mount stuff. Let's look at desktop stuff, because I don't think anybody here is going to want to go big server rack mount things. Get into some of the more desktop-y stuff. So one of the most popular is Synology, and you can get these now. If you look at this, this is network storage, and I can make some recommendations outside of YouTube. So if you get a hold of me on Patreon, or you can get a hold of me on Google Hangouts, you guys know how to reach me. We can talk about your storage and your needs, and a system that will expand with you, because our photo libraries, admit it, are always growing, right? We're always taking more photos. And I urge everybody out there, if this is a question with anybody, always, always, always keep your RAW files. Your RAW files are the only link to your camera and the proof that you took a photo. So the RAW files, we don't give our RAW files out. When you share a photo, it's a JPEG. Your RAW file is a direct link to that JPEG that says, I took it with my camera. So unless you stole your RAW files from somebody, they're always yours. So you should always protect those. I know some people finish a photo and then delete the RAW file. I would never do that. Never do that. So, so there's other systems out there. One of the more popular systems is Synology, and the other one is Drobo. Now, you've probably heard of them. They're fairly expensive, but they're fairly fast. They're a really nice system that's well built and semi-expandable. You can see some bigger systems here, and you look at the prices, like the QNAP here. You're looking at $3,000. This system pretty much won't do what my nice system does, and I'm not sure how populated it is for $3,000. Let's take a look at that, because so it looks like it can do quite a bit on the operating system, but I don't think it's populated. So that means that you get it, and then on top of that money, you've got to spend money for hard drives. The biggest mistake that I see people make, they'll go out and buy a hard drive bay like this, or a NAS system like this, then they'll get on to Best Buy, and they'll buy WD black drives, or red drives, or Seagate red drives, or whatever they make, I don't know. But those drives have a lifespan, and they don't last. So the last thing we're going to talk about tonight is how to know if your hard drive is going to die, which is very important to kind of foreshadow and know when it's time to do backups. Because we're always not sure, right, how much time we have left on a mechanical device, if it's going to hold up. SSDs are great, but they don't, they only make them so big, and they're very expensive in the supersized versions right now, at least. And they also have their own faults. So you have all these appliances. You can get one of these, park it in your house, and go. They'll work just fine. And again, this would be something that you want to consult with somebody who already has a backup system and has had good luck with something, or read the reviews and find out how they're selling. You can see some of these systems don't have good reviews on them. Read through them and see if some of them are just folks that are upset because they don't know how to operate something, or if there truly is something wrong with it. The Synology's got 12 purchases, and it's got a 5 egg rating, which is really good. So Synology and Drobo, good stuff. I would probably stick with them. Size of the drives just depends on how much space you need. I always tell people, figure out how much you have right now and then double it, because that'll get you the next 5 to 6 years usually, unless you drastically change what you're doing. And if that happens, then you'll probably buy different systems or buy more of the stuff anyways. So that's just your home desktop NAS system for backup. They'll come with an app, plug it in, start copying files, you're good to go. You can rest easy that your stuff is backed up. Oh, and look, Lightroom just finished. So that's great timing. So I have Lightroom backup pulled up here. You can see that today's date is 7/10. This is the online Dropbox now, 7/10, 2017. So this is the backup from today. We'll open up in there, and you can see the folder's empty. What's happening is that right now Dropbox is syncing, and you can see up here, it's very tiny in the corner, I know, but it says, I'll read it to you. It says that it's uploading the catalog in a zip file format. It's got about an hour left to go. So once the hour is up, that will appear in my Dropbox, and I will know that all of my catalog is backed up finally. So, all right. So that's how that system goes. If you guys are interested, I'll show you what my other system that I back up to looks like. This is the beast. Let me introduce you to the beast. So this is a server, and I log on to the server using a web browser. So it's set up so you just log into it like a website, but it's actually the interface for the server itself, and it's running a Linux on there, which I don't have to deal with really, because it's got this beautiful interface. And this is called an Unraid server. And it's got redundant backup on board and checksumming, so I can make sure that not only is all of the stuff that I do copied to it, but it's also checksummed and made sure that the files are in good shape. And if a file gets corrupted, it'll actually copy back the information and fix it. So this system is a great way to a first line of defense, so to speak. You can see that I have the Dropbox app running on it. I also have my crash plan running on it. So these are appliances that run within the Unraid ecosystem. So I can actually have this system is like another whole program running on this box. Super easy to set up. These are all programmed by wonderful open source programmers out there who port these over to this system. I never have a drought of amazing software to use. So let's just look at the web UI of CrashPlan. And there it is. CrashPlan is scheduled to begin at 2 a.m. And it's on the to-do list right now. We've got 108 gigabytes to copy, and the last backup was 15 hours ago. And you can see I'm getting very close to the end of my backup. Yay! After so many years. So CrashPlan, $59 a year, and my files will be backed up. Now, this is only the first part of my backup. I actually have to add, this is you can see just the photo archive. I still have videos, programs, documentation, everything to add to the list. So there's a lot more to go in there than just the files that are there for now. So that's CrashPlan. I also have my sync running. Oh yeah, let me tell you about sync. So this is pretty cool. So you know how you normally edit on Lightroom on your main system here. So I would edit on my main system. There's a program that you can get called Resilio Sync, and it's free, totally free. And I have it running over here. And when you run it in the background, it sits there quietly and does absolutely nothing. And right now it's watching all of my folders. If I go out and shoot during the day, and I come home and I import my photos into Lightroom, the minute I do that, it will go ahead and see that and start immediately sending those files over to that other box that we were talking about, that I just showed you. And that's the first copy. And then CrashPlan copies that to the cloud. All I did, import my photos. That's it. And so I run this on this system. I run it also on the Unraid system. So you can see this side of it. And if I click on here, you can see a web UI here. Oh, don't look at my login. And here is all of my current backups going. You can see I even back up my Lightroom backups again. And it's another copy of the Dropbox so that it keeps everything all together and sane. Just another sync program runs in the background and does not bother anything that I'm doing. In fact, I don't run it 24/7. I turn it on every other day or so and just make sure that my files are all syncing up together. Now, I know all this seems like crazy complicated, but the guides and everything to doing these are easily available on YouTube, or setting them up, the instructions that just come with the program. So knowing the program name and getting it and clicking on it and installing it is the start. Resilio Sync is available for the Mac, so you can get it for a Mac, you can get it for a PC, either one. Very cool for just doing things in the background, syncing to computers, having a mirrored computer and it copying those files automatically. Again, my goal, I don't want to hit copy and paste and spend my day, oh, I've got to copy my files. Yeah, because that's never going to get done. So this way it's set up, it's ready to go, it gets done automatically. All right, so let's see here. Done with that. Let's talk about hard drive life. Sounds like a rap song, hard drive life. So let's talk about how do we know when our hard drives are going to die? I mean, that's wizardry. That's crazy. Well, hard drives years ago didn't have the technology, of course, that they have today. One of the technologies is called SMART. And essentially what it does is it monitors the hard drive and it writes a report. And that report we can read and figure out how much life we have left, or if we're coming to the end of our life of our hard drive, or if we're walking basically on eggshells at this point, because that's really what we have to look at. So I've got two programs that are available. These are both on the PC. I am still hunting down one for the Mac. I will get that, and I will put it in the description of the video so that you guys know. By the way, we have new viewers today. Laura, you've been with me before, and you know, but Marge, this is the first time I've actually seen you in chat. So I'll tell you that I always put useful information after I do the broadcast. The next day, I will fill in information in the description of the YouTube video so that you can find these links to go and check this stuff out for yourself. And then once you've checked things out, you can ask me on Patreon, say, oh, I checked this out. Do you think this is good or whatever? And we'll go from there. So these two programs, one is called Disk Info and the other one's called Diskmark 64. So if you're on a PC, these programs are free. They're from Crystal Diskmark. Filled my broadcast with things that are really hard to say tonight. One of them gives you a speed readout for your drive. That's Diskmark. So we'll load that one up. So this one will tell you how fast your hard drive can go. So we get all sorts of reports on the box when we get our hard drives. Up to 6 gigabytes transfers and blah, blah, blah. Well, none of that's ever true. And it all has to do with bus speed. It's got to do with what's going on the computer at the time, traffic on the PCI lanes. All of that have something to do with the speed. So it says up to 6 gigabytes. It means you're probably going to get about 3 or less. So this program does a real-world simulation of writing the files and tells you how fast all of your hard drives are. And then the other program, Disk Info 64, that's going to take a second to load up because it's got to load up a bunch of tables and play a little music, I think, once it loads up. So let's test a hard drive. So here's my C drive. My C drive, you can see I have a lot of hard drives. My C drive is a solid state drive. So when I'm setting up Lightroom or any software that uses a cache system, where they say, oh, there's a cache folder for your photos. What I do is the number one fastest drive, I'll go down through and I will check every drive for speed, and I write a little list on a piece of paper. I know it's hard to believe with all this technology, but I actually use paper and a pencil for this. I write it all down and I take the very fastest drive, and that's where my catalog for Lightroom is going to go because that gets the most use. Then the second fastest drive gets my cache folder in Lightroom. And then from there, we whittle our way back to installing Lightroom itself. So that's the way that I really get the most speed. So let me just read, because Lori just typed something. There we go. We got that coming up. Let's see. I'm almost out of room on my backup for photos and catalog on a 2 terabyte external drive. I was thinking of splitting my catalog and photos and just starting fresh with a new external drive. Is this a bad idea? Shied away from cloud because your internet is poor. Okay, so what if you don't have internet or your internet is slow, which is a case for a lot of us? Splitting your catalog and your photos to 2 different drives is a wonderful idea. In fact, highly recommended. And then buying 2 more drives on top of that equal those 2 drives, and then making a copy of both to both is very important. Now, your Lightroom catalog does not need super speed to copy to Dropbox. In fact, it can do it overnight while you're sleeping. You won't even notice your internet connect is being used. So I would highly recommend just use Dropbox or Google Drive to save your Lightroom catalogs. They zip up into smaller files. So on the disk, they'll look like they're like 8 or 9 gigabytes. But when you zip them up, they're like 1.5 gigabytes. And it will take a couple of days to send it, but it'll be fine that way. You don't need a whole hard drive for that. For your photos, on the other hand, you do need to make actual duplicate copies. And I would highly suggest, bare minimum, to copy your photos, because I know this will be a fact that a lot of people, A, can't afford a lot of equipment, and because we're starving artists in the long run, and B, may not want to operate all the equipment or get it set up, which I suggest that you learn how to do it, because I think it's an important thing for all of us to know how to do. But once it's set up, you don't have to really do anything with it. But if you're on the budget or just want the basics, you're going to want an external hard drive that's comparable in size to the hard drive that you're currently putting your photos on. And that means like big enough. Hard drives are cheap today. They're not that expensive. So you can get a 4 terabyte hard drive for $99. Regularly, you can probably get them even cheaper than that on sale. So, You can buy an enclosure. I have an enclosure on my desk called a Cable Matters enclosure. I will put a link to this. It's a USB 3 box that sits on your desktop, and you plug the drive right into the box. You don't even put it in an enclosure. You just buy these raw drives, which are the cheapest way to buy a hard drive. Plug it in, and now you've got a backup. Now, make your backup. When you're done, turn the system off, pull the drive, and take it off-site. Take it to your parents' house. Take it to your brother's house. Have them put it in somewhere so it's not in your house. Or, you know, I don't know, if you have a workplace, you can store it, whatever. But you want it to be in a different location. So it seems like a lot of work, but let me tell you, if you lose all of your work, you can't get it back. So when I lost just those simple files, it was horrifying for me. Like I'm definitely never going to see that hard work. 5, 6, 7 hours of work that I did is gone for good, never coming back. And quite honestly, the part that scared me the most was I didn't know what else was on the drive. It had been a long time since I had looked at it, but it was dead. So get an extra drive, get big drives, fill them up, get a nice system for the desktop. This little Cable Matters thing, was only $25 to plug 2 hard drives in. And what's cool about it is you can use it as a hard drive, an external hard drive bay all the time for one drive, and then you can put a secondary drive in it, and it's got a button on the top that says copy, and you can actually copy it to the backup drive, then pull that drive and take it to the friend's house. Now you've got a copy. You fill up the internal drive a little bit more, go get your drive from your friend, bring it in, plug it into the thing, hit copy again. It puts all the files, the new files on there, take it out, take it back to the friend's house. That's the basic. You're going to have to do some legwork if you don't want to build a system or go with a NAS backup system that just sits and monitors and makes copies and makes sure your files are safe. So that's how I started. That's how I did it. Was essentially started with multiple hard drives, making copies. And if I think way back, it was DVDs and CDs that I used to copy out my photos. And I think about those days and I'm like, wow, that was a pain in the butt. Because, I mean, to copy 20 photos would take 3 hours, it was crazy. So this little program, though, I hope that answers your question, Lori, by the way. This little program, what it does is it looks at all my hard drives. It's what took it a little while to load up. And it gives me a readout from the smart data that it has and tells me exactly what's going on. So I can easily see, quickly looking at this little screen, if I don't think this expands, I think that's it, that I have one drive that says caution on it. Let's just look at that drive. So it lights up and tells me exactly what's happened. There's reallocated sectors, and there's a pending sector count. Now, I did an error check on this earlier tonight, and the drive is okay. This might be an anomaly with the software that it isn't reading it properly. The drive is running a little warmer than all the other drives. As you can see, they're all at about 30. There's one warmer here at 39, but I was just backing up to that. That's why that's nice and warm. But 37, this drive might be a little closer to a heat sink or something like that. So it's picking up a little bit, of that. Do I know of a cloud system? Lori has another question. A cloud system that allows you to selectively back up only your most important files. Well, Dropbox, because you just basically it builds a folder and you only put your important files in that folder, and then it's backed up. So there isn't a program that's you can flag files and it'll just know where they're at. I mean, that's not really out there yet, although you might want to develop the app. Maybe there'd be a call for that. What I used to do with my business files, because I wanted to make sure that my taxes and everything like that, there was copies of those documents. What I would do is I'd keep them on a folder system where like year 2016 taxes, year 2015 taxes, be separate folders for all those. And then what I would do is at the end of the year, what I as part of filing my taxes and doing all of that stuff, the next step was to copy that folder to my Dropbox business folder and have that copied off. And then I'd have the copy on this system, the copy in Dropbox, and of course it moves it to the other system in the other room. So essentially my most important files, that's how I handle that. As far as most important photos, I don't, Dropbox isn't a good solution for backup. There isn't enough space. I pay $99 a year for 1 terabyte. That wouldn't hold half my files. So wouldn't hold 1% of my files. So that's, I don't know. It depends on how many files you have, and you'd have to add those up and see how much space you actually need. Maybe Dropbox will get you by for a while, and that's cool. But ultimately, I'll tell you, when you start down the road of backup, the one thing that's difficult to do, and anybody who runs Lightroom knows this, is to store files for 4 or 5 years and then decide you want to organize, because it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare to move things and it's the same thing with backup. If you start with Dropbox and then you've got to move 600 gigabytes of files to another server, that might be a serious pain in your butt. And it might actually be dangerous. You don't know, depending on how you copy it and how you get those files. So you might lose something. Who knows? So I usually like to make calculated decisions on that part. Is photography something that I'm going to quit? No, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep making photos. So if I buy, if I save up my money and I buy a big system, I bought a system that was larger than I needed, but with some expansion, and I've already expanded it, I spent the money as good insurance. And I look at this way, I can pay insurance, but what's insurance going to do if I lose my photos? They're not going to do anything. I mean, photos are gone. They're just gone. But I want to get back to looking at this drive. So the important stuff here isn't this caution and all this stuff. That's interesting. The important thing is over here. Look at the power on hours. 2,603 days and 11 hours. That drive has been working tirelessly for me. This drive is well overdue to just die in any second. I don't keep anything important on it. And when hard drives get to this age, generally they're good for about 50,000 hours for a consumer drive. Now, that's not a NAS drive. When you go and buy a NAS drive, they are an industrial level server farm drive that is basically set up to run a lot longer and a lot cooler and they're a lot better than what us consumers can get. And there's rumor that some of these drives, when they're going through quality test, the stuff that doesn't meet the top specifications ends up in the consumer pool, and the stuff that meets the top expectations ends up in the server pool. I don't know if there's any real super physical difference. There may be. I don't know. So these are all the drives in my production system here are not NAS drives. They're just standard desktop drives I bought at Best Buy or Newegg or Amazon or whatever. So they're good drives. I use Hitachi, and I try to stay away from Seagate. Seagate was the drive that died on me, and Seagate drives have died on me in the past. A lot of them have. Seagate. So, and you can see it says click on it. Dead drive. So this is a 1.5 terabyte drive that is a paperweight at this point. It's useless. And people say, well, you can replace the logic board. Well, yeah, I can, and I have on drives, and still they don't hold up. This drive started clicking, and once that clicking starts, it usually means that there's a read-write error, and it's just probably not going to ever go away, and you lose your drive. So I know that this drive is pretty much on its way out, but I can look at some of these other drives. Here we have one that has 15,000. I know I have another. Here's G. The G drive is another oldie that has 63,000 hours, so that's well overdue to die, although all of its numbers look really good. There's no errors, there's no problems, so good on you, drive, for holding up all this time. Here we have one with 20,000 hours, 7,000 hours. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're all basically, this is awesome data to be able to look at. Where to put my important files? Well, on the drives that, there's another one that has 62,000 62,000 hours, if you can even comprehend that number. So this helps me understand which drives are going to get my photos, right? And which drives I need to get my photos off in a hurry or move them to a drive that has a better lifespan. Now, does that mean that a drive will last 50,000 hours, or does it mean that some of these drives last 60,000 hours, and then what about the drive that died over here? How old was that? Or it might have been younger. And a lot of the way I test a hard drive company is whether or not they have a good track record of lasting that 50,000 hours. Now, it doesn't mean that a hard drive will die at 50,000 hours. I might get 100,000 hours out of these drives, but at the 50,000 hour point, you really should start considering the fact that it could die tomorrow. So that's the important part of that. Will it die? No one knows. Only the drive knows when the mechanics are going to fail. So at that point, though, you need to think about backing up. I have had experience with Western Digital. They are my second favorite of drives out there. Right now, I'm a big supporter of Hitachi drives because they are part of the technology of IBM and DeskStar, which IBM DeskStar for years were the best hard drives you could get. I mean, you could beat them things to death. I still have 3 IBM DeskStar drives in the other room in a recording console that have been stellar. Hitachi is that technology. If you buy a DeskStar today, they're Hitachi. And Hitachi is also part of Western Digital, so they're all kind of one thing. But the misconception is that Western Digital drives are not Hitachi, and Hitachi drives are not Western Digital. They are 2 separate things, and the quality is different on both of them. Western Digital red drives are good. Western Digital green drives are meh, and you can just go by price. If you look at the prices on them, with hard drives, you pay more, you get a better drive. I mean, it's usually the case. I don't think in the future I will ever buy an over-the-counter drive again. I will always from here buy NAS quality drives. They are slower, mind you. They're usually around 5,400 RPM, but they have big buffers in them. Their write speeds are okay. They're fairly decent, but they're built like tanks. I mean, you could tell when you hold one that it's just built like a tank. So this is a good program, Crystal Disk Info. Crystal Disk Mark, I was going to run that for you in the background and show you how you speed check a drive. There is a program, by the way, that I can show you. I think I can show you. Let me see if I can show you. Never know. See if Windows will cooperate, and I will show you what I'm talking about. That, and we want this. I'm going to show you my Mac here real quick, because I have a program on the Mac that's free that you can get to test your drives on a Mac. So it doesn't do this information thing. I'm still looking for that, but it will do speed. So it'll show you how fast your drive is. So let me just see if I can get this going. Should serve over and take over this screen, hopefully. There we go. Hey, it's a Mac on a PC. I'm breaking all sorts of rules. All right, so get my mic out of the way there. You guys, I hope you're seeing, if you're seeing my Macintosh right now, this is my MacBook Pro. And this is a program from Blackmagic Designs. If you go to the App Store and you type in Blackmagic space disk speed, you can download this for free. It's from Blackmagic Designs. And essentially all it does is it goes through and it benchmarks your hard drive. So this is the drive in my MacBook Pro. And it'll do its thing. Takes just a second. Now, what's interesting about this is that it will continue to test over and over and over and over and over again until you hit the stop button. So it's writing 5 gigabit files, 5 gig files, sorry, gigabyte files to the hard drive. and then it's reading back an average of speed. So we can see here. And then if we hit the stop button, you can see over on this part that it's actually giving you a readout of the speeds of can it handle these files. And it says here that basically this is set up to test video rendering speeds, but it works to tell you how fast your hard drive is anyway. So you can see here we can write at 1490.6 megabytes per second. I highly doubt that, but okay, seems like there might be some cheating going on there, but maybe it is an M.2 card, so it probably can write at that speed. And you can see the read speed is an incredible 2200 megabytes per second. So the new MacBook Pro, quite nice in the hard drive department. I do have an external drive on this. I do not think that we can test that. Let's just take a look. Oh, I can. Select target drive. Well, my target drive will not be happy about this, I'm sure. All right, so this is my external drive. Let's just do a comparison. Now, my external drive is connected over Thunderbolt, but it is just a standard 2.5-inch mechanical drive. Let's see what the speed differences are. I'm going to get a drink while this does this. Well, I think you get a good impression of what my speeds are. Not good on that drive. You can see what we can read and what we can write as far as video goes, but in comparison to the M.2 internal drive on the MacBook Pro, my poor external drive is crappy. But here's the thing. External drive, it's just there for backups. All I do is put photos on there when I'm done editing them, and I use it to transport them to my home system. So it doesn't need to be a super fast drive. At some point, I'll get a faster drive probably for it. But right now, it works. So I wouldn't put my hard drive, I wouldn't put my catalog on there, and I wouldn't put my my cache drive on there. All I'm doing is storing photos on there. So it's plenty fast to load in and out raw files without any problem. So that's the Blackmagic Designs disk speed test. So that'll help you test for your faster drives. Now, it doesn't really have anything to do with backups, but at least it'll allow you to see which drives are fast, which drives are slow, and give you an idea where you should store different aspects of your photography. All right, guys, I think this is probably going to wrap it up for this session. If you have questions, please post them on the last YouTube post that I did on Patreon. You can ask questions about hardware and whatnot. I will update the description so you can get these programs. You can try some of this stuff yourself. And next week, what we're going to do is we're going to delve a little bit deeper into how the backups are set up and how they work and that sort of thing, and how you can access your catalogs and things from Lightroom on the road, or how you can make backups on the road, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that you guys joined me. It's nice to see some friendly faces here tonight. 4 people hanging out. A lot of you being quiet. Thank goodness for Lori. She's always can be counted on for hanging out and asking good questions. So thank you, Lori, for hanging out. And thank you, everyone else, for supporting me on Patreon. And please, also, I want to take this quick second. I do this at the end of my broadcasts. Let me get over here so you guys can shame me. If you guys have ideas or things that you want to know about and for photographies, like you can say, well, geez, I wish I knew how to organize my Lightroom catalog, or how do I make a preset in something, or anything like that, please post it in Patreon in the public forums. This is how I get my ideas for my streaming. And we want to continue with this every Monday and cover these topics for you guys and help you expand your learning. And so the only way I'm going to know how to do this is to find out from you guys. And this is your channel. I am at your beck and call. So please feel free to ask away, ask any questions that you want over on Patreon, and we'll try to think about what we're going to do next after handling all of the backups. So yeah, you might have a current system in place right now, or you might not be sure of what you need. That's the kind of questions that you're going to want to ask on Patreon that I can help you with. So, all right. I think that's going to probably do it. I got to press a button here somewhere. We will be back next week at 8 p.m. on Monday, right here on this stream, and I will post it in Patreon. If you want, you go to my YouTube page and click the subscribe button and then the little bell right next to it. That will notify you when I'm doing non-Patreon stuff, because I do that too, or when I post another tutorial that might be public, and then all of your Patreon stuff gets delivered to your email box. So that'll tell you like, oh, there's a stream tonight. And I try to let people know just before, a few hours before we're going to do it so that they can be aware of what's going on. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the hardware that I had listed in on the Patreon page and below the video. I'm also going to start this broadcast out by talking about how I organize my photos within Lightroom and a little bit about how I keep them on my hard drives. But I'm going to keep it really brief. And then next week, we're going to be talking about cloud storage, which is how all of this kind of started for me. So let's just talk about that really quick. You guys know I have an Unraid server that I back everything up to, and I've got all this storage online. So, well, I didn't start that way. When I first started, mainly my backup was an external hard drive. And in fact, for many years, I didn't have a backup. I just basically ran by the seat of my pants. So, and I kind of always figured, well, I upload all of my finished photos to SmugMug, so there's my backup, right? But the reality is that you need to keep your raw files. And if you ever have any copyright disputes or anything like that, having the raw files is very important. If you think about it, if someone takes a photo of yours and they use it and you dispute it and they say, well, I took this photo, and in a court of law, whoever can produce the raw photo is going to be the real owner. So if you think about that, that's really important. So backing up your raws is important. So I started out with just hard drive. I'd go to Best Buy and buy a 1 terabyte hard drive. I think at the time, they were like 250 gig hard drives. I don't know. Maybe I'm dating myself a little bit. But I would just back up to them. I'd make copies to that and say, there, I've got copies. I mean, that's a pain, but that's sometimes the way we have to start. So we're going to talk about that hardware and how to do that in just a little bit. But first, let's talk about Lightroom and how I arrange my photos in Lightroom. One of the things I started doing from the very beginning was naming my photos by year. So I started in 2008. So if you guys can see this, I hope you can see this all right. Make sure you're in HD so you can see this. I think the broadcast should be fine for you to see it. But when I first started, I would name my folders. Now I want to show you my physical drives as well so you can see, because remember, a catalog is one thing, but then on your actual hard drive is another, where you import your photos from your SD cards or your compact flash cards, right? So let me drag over here. These are my physical drives. So I have, as you can see here, like print grade uploads. I had things separated. Like I had one disk for prints, one for web, because I was saving off web folders. And then I would have my actual storage where I would import my photos to that drive. So if we look at photo storage 1 here, you can see there's a bunch of different folders here. But mainly you can see my photos 2010, my photos 2012. I used to always name things my this, my that. My documents is where I got that from. So I did like my docs, my files, my published works, my this, my that. I've changed that since then to the year and the actual photography. Now I haven't gone back and renamed these for these, but in my backups, I've actually renamed all of these and they're nice and neat. So let me show you what the backup folder looks like. I'll open up another. Okay, so my backup folders are over on my backup system, which is on the network. So this is my server. So if I come over to server and I look at photo archive, you can see that once this loads, which takes a little bit to load in all of this, so you can see it. Now remember, this is not my Lightroom catalog. These are just how I store my files on my hard drives. So I'm going to show you what the backups look like. So here's the backups, and you can see 2008, 2009, so on and so forth, right? Every year covered here. And inside here are the raw files from every year. And then I have other devices like the Osmo and the Phantom, and from my phone, and then Danny's photos, and then my catalog backups and everything are on this storage device. But you can see over here, they're on all different drives spread out all over the place, which takes a little bit of organization. But that's how we build as we go. Every year I expand a little bit. I got to buy another hard drive. And now what I'm starting to do is actually backing up stuff from this system and then deleting them. So they'll be on backup. They'll be on the cloud backed up. So I figured I got 2 backups. Unless I need those files for something, they're backed up. So let's take a look again at all these drives. So I have photo storage 1. I've got 2 years on there. I've got 2010 and 2012. I've got photo storage 2, which I've got 2013, 2014. You can see I did that 2013, 14. I called it photography. Within that, I've got it separated out by clients. Some of this stuff some was locations. I still have to do some organizing. And if I could teach you guys, I think I said this last week, if I could teach you guys anything, it would be organized from the beginning, because if you start 4 years into it, you're in this hell that I am in, which is constantly looking for things and having to remember the exact camera I shot it on or something to try to track it down through metadata or whatever. It would just be much easier to say, oh, I took that photo in 2013. It's a travel photo, so I know it's in this folder, and that helps me narrow it down so I can find it. So I've still got some sorting to do. But you can see here I've got 2013 events, and inside that I've got some events that I shot in that year. And then you can look at Urbex, which is my exploration, my abandoned scapes. I've got the places I shot in 2013. And then I usually have a travel category in here, and that would include the AACA, which is the Antique Automobile Club of America. It would have some of these other places that I visited down here. But I was shooting in a studio at the time too, which I don't really have them sorted yet either. So I need to do all of that. Let's look at a more sorted year. In 2014, I started to sort things much better. So here I have art prints that I did for a show. I have events that I shot that year. So here we go again with all of those. I have I have a pause while it figures out what those folders are. That was weird. It allowed me in, but now that I try to get back out, it's pausing on me. Maybe I have a hard drive that's going bad, huh? All right. So I've got a miscellaneous here, this lightning season, which is all lightning photos that I was taking. It was a big stormy year. I have my Studio X imaging, which was all places. These were all clients that we had come into our studio. So I had all of them in one folder. And then I had travel. So here's all the places that I traveled to that year. And then also here's my Urbex again and all the Urbex things that I shot that year. And then a bunch of this other stuff was just like things that I did, like my texture packs from my phone, from my iPad, just miscellaneous stuff, Google Drive, focus stacking, some projects that I worked on, nothing, that warranted its own category. So going forward, 2015, let's look at what I did there. That's on photo storage number 3. So here on photo storage 3, you can see that we have 2015, 2016, and 2017. So in 2017, you can see I went back to my old ways and didn't sort things out, or 2015. 2015, the reason why things aren't really super sorted here is because we traveled 52,000 miles in 2015. So most of everything I did was here in travel. And pretty much I didn't do work out of these other folders. These were just like quick. I don't have time to mess with any of this stuff. So I just would throw it in these miscellaneous folders. And then let's look at 2016. Things calmed down a little bit. We had a few miscellaneous folders again, but travel, once again, was quite full. And then Urbex again, one place on my abandonedscapes. Not good for me. And this year doesn't look much better, unfortunately, although we're going to get some ghost towns in there. But that's how I arrange my stuff on my folders. And I also do, like in 2016 in travel, let's look at Acadia. I also established dates. So I brought things in by date. So the way this works is when you import it, you can bring it in and it gives you the year, and then it puts it in the month. And then on top of that, it puts it under the day that you shot it. I'm not always a big fan of this, but when I do a trip for a week at a same place, I like to sort it out by days. That helps me kind of know what I did each day and gives me a flow for writing when I'm going to write about these places. So that helps me say, oh, I write it by day. Like this day I did this, and maybe I didn't do a lot on 2 days, so I might combine that into one story. So that just helps me map all of that stuff out. Normally when I'm shooting, though, I don't use those folders. I'll go in and, here again, it saved it in Albany. Let's see if Chicago was just one big folder from 2 days. And yeah, so Delaware weekend, one big folder for those days. Probably a question you guys are wondering, do I save in DNG? I do sometimes, or RAW, and most of the time I save in the RAW files. I actually found that DNG files, while they're smaller, once in a while I see a difference in the photo quality. So I'm shooting uncompressed RAW right now with my Sony a7R II, and I like those uncompressed photos to stay that way. So I eat up a lot of space, but it's the way I like to do my photos. So so that kind of wraps up how I store things on my drives. Then when I import them into the catalog, I try to keep them on the drive so I know where to find them. Although you can find any photo that you want by right-clicking on it and then just say Show in Explorer, or in the Mac it's Show in Finder, and that will take you to the physical folder that it's in. Remember, this is what we're looking at is where it's stored on our catalog, which is on a completely separate drive all by itself. And I try to arrange things in here the same way. Now I probably could, because I don't, because when I import, I move folders or copy them, I don't add. Because if you add something when you import it, you're just leaving it in its location, adding it to your catalog, but if you take that SD card out, you don't have a file anymore. So you have to, when you import these to your hard drive from your SD or compact flash, you always have to move the files or copy the files, not just add. The only time you use add is when you copy everything in without using like import or anything to a folder, and then you're like, oh, that's the folder it's supposed to be in. You open up Lightroom, you hit import, and then you say add to the catalog, and it just adds an entry to that drive. So that's why you would use that in that setup. Do you guys understand basically how I keep things categorized? And when I bring them in, they look just like the same folder construction as my physical drives. I really don't change that because it just helps me find things a lot easier. So if that's cool with you guys and you guys understand any of that, I'll answer any questions or come back to it. I think we're going to move on to the hardware portion of backing up. And this is going to be most crucial for you guys because I'm going to explain what I left in the description of last week's video. All right, so the product rundown that I did on the video, if you guys have looked at that yet, basically there were links to, it's kind of like the hierarchy of it is that there's good backup, there's better backup, and then there's best backup. And then within that, I did good, better, and best of each category. So essentially what I'm trying to do for you guys is give you a lot of options. So I started with good on all of these and then progressed to best. So I'm going to go through them and we'll talk about them. So this here is a basic hard drive bay, and it is USB 3.0. These links, by the way, will take you directly to these if you want to get them. And all of these things I'm going to show you do not come with hard drives. We're going to talk about the hard drives themselves at the end. So they're unpopulated. That's what it's called. So essentially, you'd get this thing, you'll put this on top of your desk, and you'll pop a couple of hard drives in it. And they go in right there. And essentially, you have an A drive and a B drive. You can see over here on the left. And if you were making copies, it's as easy as putting all your photos on the A drive. And then if you wanted to make a backup, you had a duplicate drive in B. And then when on your downtime, you hit clone, it will copy drive A to drive B, which is pretty cool. And then you could disconnect it from your computer and store one of the drives off site, or in a firebox or something like that. So this is the very basic. This is nothing more than an external hard drive for your computer. I have one on my desk right in front of me, and I do use it, but I don't use it for that anymore. It's just there for it's just an extra hard drive because I ran out of space to put it in my computer. So that would be your a good way to get started. You buy this little unit, you buy a couple of hard drives, they stick down in the slots. There's really nothing to do other than plug it in, let your computer find it. It'll ask you if you want to format them. You format them for your computer. It works on a PC or a Mac, and you're good to go. Let's see. Lori has a question here. Let me see if I can answer this. If you split your master photography file into separate years, do you still use one catalog? Wouldn't parts of the catalog show question marks rather than the number of images in the folder? I use one big giant catalog. I have talked with the Adobe folks and asked them if having a different catalog for every, and they suggest against it. They said it does not slow the system down by having one large catalog. So I have a running catalog that I make backups of. And they said that it's better that way simply because there's less to keep track of and less to make backups of. And a lot of people, as they move on to other catalogs, forget about the old catalog. Something happens to it that you never know about, and you've never made a backup of it, or your backups aren't fresh, or possibly something happens to those backups. So it is better to keep one giant catalog. I know that's weird, but that's straight from the Adobe programmer's mouth. So if you keep separate catalogs, that is, if you move your files away from their physical locations, you will get a question mark. So what Lori's talking about is all of these files in this catalog right now, which if you open up my catalog, you can see there are 282,042 files in my current catalog. And if I was to unplug one of these drives with the photos in there, when I loaded up this catalog, that would show question marks wherever those photos were not there. So like right here, you can see time lapses has a question mark. That's because I backed up that folder and I've moved it over to my server and I've copied it off to my cloud, but I don't have a local copy of it. This is something that once time lapses are done, I just archive the files so that I have them if I want to revisit them, but I don't keep them alive on my production machine. They go off to the bank, so to speak, and they're stored there. So that's why we have a little question mark here. If you had a different catalog for each one of these, obviously they would only show up in the catalog that you're using, and unless you move them away from their physical location, they will always show up in here. People have asked me before about moving their what if I want to move my files? If I need to move, I think I worked with Mary. Hopefully she's out there or she's going to watch this video. I worked with Mary Preston Roberts about moving. She loaded up some stuff and couldn't find any of her files. Well, they were still there. It was just something happened with her Mac, and it designated the drive numbers were in different places, or drive letters. So all we needed to do was just show the catalog where the files had moved to, and they all repopulated, because stored along with your files are XML files and sidecar files, which hold all your edits. So you wouldn't lose your physical files really if you move them. Some people have copied just their files off and don't copy the sidecar files, and then you lose your edits. So you go back to RAWs, without any edits. So you have to move all of that stuff if you're moving it around. Moving stuff in Lightroom is beyond the scope of this tutorial. We can do a thing on moving stuff, and I can physically move some things and show you. But yeah, Lightroom, we could go deep on Lightroom for a long time, just answering questions. And if that's something you guys want to see, please make sure you request it on Patreon. For the next series, I've got to go through and look at suggestions. So now's the time to get them out there and get them fresh in front of my eyes. All right, so this is our basic package. This would be just to get you going on backups. Buy a couple of drives, buy this unit, copy your stuff off to this unit, unplug it, get it away from your computer, and you've got a basic backup that you have. Take it to a friend's house, take it to wherever. Just remember, you got to retrieve it when you're ready to back up more files. Just kind of a pain in the ass. But if your budget doesn't allow for, a server or a NAS system or some of the stuff we're going to talk about here, this is the way to go. So let's look at the next one on the list. This would be considered a better setup. So this is faster hard drive speeds. This is the Mediasonic Pro Box. You can see here it's got a faster hard drive transfer speed, USB 3 again, eSATA, all this kind of stuff. It's like, a bunch of tech speak, but just means faster, more. This has space for, let's see, I think this one had space for 4 drives. So you can put 40 terabytes in this little box. And this has copy functions. It's got fans built in to keep the drives cool. Again, $99, but you still have to buy drives to put in here. So you'd buy 4 3 terabyte drives, 4 terabyte drives, and etc. To populate it. And they're easy to populate. Usually the drives just clip in. It's not like you've got to have a science degree to put in these drives. So you can see this has got a big fan on the back. It's got your USB 3 ports on the back. And it's got all your little brackets and a manual that shows you how to do all this. It's really not difficult at all, I don't think. So $100, you've got yourself now a little bit more stylish unit that's going to fit into a lot of application areas a lot better than an open system that just sits on the desk. I made the jump from the open system on the desk to a full server. And we'll get to that in just a minute. So this would be considered a better solution. Bigger space, it's got the speed, it's got some fans in it to keep it cool, and it's just gonna be a better solution all the way around. For the basics, this is what I would consider the best that you can get for basics. This is the Numtech TerraMaster. And the reason why this is a little bit better is because this uses RAID storage, which you can configure to make redundancy possible. So now you can not only copy off to 2 drives, but you can copy off to 3 drives in this, and then use 1 drive to actually checksum all the files to make sure that they stay, their integrity stays good. So this is kind of a backup with a little bit of backup. So this is why this gets my better vote, or best vote, actually, on this. It also supplies 2 USB hubs. It's got a better fan system in the back. So you plug this in to USB, and you get a couple of hubs in the back. You can plug your camera in. Plus, I think this one, I'm not sure if this is the one. So you can get it in larger sizes too, by the way, which is, also very nice. No, I think it's actually it's in the next section, so we'll talk about that in just a second. So basic features all the way around. You can copy your camera stuff directly to this drive by plugging your camera into the back of this guy using the buttons on the front. It's pretty nice setup. So it'll handle up to 40 terabytes again, so you're not... I doubt anybody out there right now is going to need more than 40 terabytes. So the nice thing about things like this is they can grow with you. And you can start out with just, here's the other thing too, when you're populating these drives, a lot of people will be like, well, I'm going to get 4 drives because that's what I can afford right now. But I can afford 4 2 terabyte drives. I highly suggest against doing that. I would probably say afford 1 10 terabyte drive and then another drive for the parity of that drive for the RAID. But don't try to populate it with small drives, because you do that and then you outgrow it, those drives are going to be used. Generally, used drives don't resell too much. So you want to kind of plan that out a little bit. Think about, how much do you have now? How long has it taken you to build this many files? Do you plan on upgrading your camera, making bigger files, doing video? Think about the expandability down the road. And of course, you could probably get another one of these units. So I just caution people against going out and buying, filling the entire thing with small hard drives. It's better to fill them with as large as you possibly can. If you can only do 2 slots, then just make the drives as big as you possibly can when you do that. That way, when you can afford 2 more drives, you can go either bigger or the same size, and your expansion will be that much better. So this is what I would consider, again, the best solution for basic backup. All right, so now we're going to move on to a NAS system. Now this would be what I would consider a better backup solution than the 3 prior. First in this line is the Synology 2-bay 16 terabyte or 20 terabyte network attached storage. The way these units work is they plug in through your Ethernet. So you plug in an Ethernet cable into your router, and then it's like a mini computer with hard drives in it, and then your computer accesses it. So it's got a little brain in it, and you can access that brain by a web browser. So you can log onto it, and it's got a little app thingies you can do. You can see down here, it comes with 32-bit encoding, MPEG-4. So basically this unit will also probably play back videos. It's probably got apps on it. It does transcoding on the fly. So a lot of it's kind of backup plus. So it's a backups with an app system built into it. So this is $249. Does not include any drives. Again, you can put 10 terabyte hard drives in here for 20 terabytes, and you can set it up however you want for RAID. So there's a lot of different RAID configurations, and each one of those means something different. If you go to Wikipedia and you type in what are the RAID modes, it will tell you what each one of them does, like RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 2, and so on, RAID 5. And they're very easy to understand. So you want to look at that, because like if you put 2 drives in a RAID 1 configuration and they're both 10 terabyte drives, you only have 10 terabytes of space, because what it is a mirrored configuration where it's mirroring everything you do on one drive to another drive for redundancy. But if you use RAID 0, it's set up for speed. So everything that you write between the 2 drives now is available, and it gets better speed by writing back and forth to each drive in a sequential manner. So, that's a little bit more risky, but it's more high speed. If you're using it for one part of your backup and you have other backups going on, that usually works just fine. So you'll have to make those choices on your own, or you can consult with me and I'll try to direct you as best I can. Let's look at the better NAS solution, and that's going to look. We're going to look at the Drobo 5C. Now, over on what's it called? This Week in Photo, there is a review of the Drobo over there that Frederick Van Johnson did, and you can check that out. It's a very good review to show how the system works. It's basically a NAS drive again. It works over your network, so you plug it in, sits in a room. As long as it has access to your network, it'll show up on your computer. It has apps that will run on it, that sort of thing. This is just a different version of the other drive with a little bit more expansion in here. So you can see it supports up to 64 terabytes. So I think this you can do 5 drives in this. You can see here on the back, they just slot in the back. And when they're ready to go, you get a little green light. So the reason why I gave this a better grade than the one before that we just looked at, the Synology, is simply because this is easier to operate in the long run. So it's a little bit more expensive, but it's easier to operate. It's got basic features, but they work very well. And it's a well-known name out there as well. So that comes in at the better level of the better NAS system or better backup system. So better. Hope that makes sense. And this is the QNAP gets my vote for the best of the NAS backup systems. So this gives you a personal cloud. It's got a good Intel processor in it. It also has media transcoding and apps built in. It's got a nice fan in the back. It's got 4 bays. You can also get it I think you can get it in 2 bays. Yeah. And you can also get it in different styles, that sort of thing. And the hard drives load into these, let me show you right here. They load into these trays. So you put it in the tray, slide it in, and you're ready to go. You guys can go to Amazon through those links and watch all the videos and see how each one of these works. Listen to their sales pitch if you want to. A little bit more expensive here. We're into $509, but this is more of an appliance, and it's just a better backup system all the way around. So that's gonna do it for the 6 ideas that I had for you guys for backup. This will be a good start for you guys. You can start anywhere in there and upgrade along the way. And a lot of the hardware, like this hard drive bay thing I have, I still use it. So, and it's USB 3. It works really well for the drive that I have in there. I actually store my videos on it. It works really well. So let's talk about hard drives. You have to populate all of these systems with hard drives. I've given you 3 hard drives to choose from. These are basically through years of experience. I've chosen these drives for you guys. Now you can go to Best Buy to start out and you can buy a drive. It might die on you in a month. You're going to be writing to it a lot when you're copying your files off. You take your chances with it. I've had drives from Best Buy that, like I told you last week, are still working great for me, but I also have had ones that die immediately or very close to it. These drives, however, that I'm going to show you are what server farms and basically large data centers would use. So these drives, while they might be a little bit more expensive, and they're not that much more expensive, you can get them on sale. These drives are pretty much the pick of the litter for quality industrial level, aren't going to die on you tomorrow sort of thing. So you can trust your backups to these. So first on the list is the WD Red drives. These are pretty much WD's NAS-based drive. Essentially, or what WD stamps is their drives used for critical backup. You can get a 2 terabyte drive for $85. So you could start your backup system with that hard drive bay for $35 and 1 of these drives just to get started, and you're in at under or right around $100 to back up your photos. So I think that's a pretty good start, right? You could ultimately, what I would suggest is you get 2 of these drives and populate that very first thing that I showed you, this guy. You populate this with 2 of these guys to get started, and now you're looking at $170, $200 to get started. But that's going to give you redundant backup. You can copy to one drive and then copy that drive to another drive. Now you've got your original copies and 2 more copies of your photos. So you've got a redundant backup there. And this is without ever going to an online cloud system. We're going to talk about that in length next week. I've got 5 providers called up for you guys, and we're going to go over the pros and cons of cloud storage and why it's important and why you should think seriously about adding that to the list of things for your backup. But this week, I just wanted to get you guys started because I know a lot of you are running on the raggedy edge, needing backup. Second on the list, a better drive than the WD, while the WD is good, is the Toshiba drives. And these are their high reliability hard drives. I put a big stamp on these basically for price because the price is really good. And the quality is there. Toshiba makes a good product. $145.99 for 4 terabytes. That's pretty good. And this is a fast drive, 7,200 RPM. It's faster, actually, than the WD Red, which comes in at 5,400 RPM. Although, for backups, even my high-end drives, which I'm going to show you at the end, are 5,400 RPM. They're not 7,200 RPM. So basically, this would be my suggestion if you wanted to go with a little bit better quality drive. And then on the end, and you can see you can get these in different sizes too, right? And then on the end would be the Death Star NAS from Hitachi, which is HGST is Hitachi. For the longest, and you can see it's a Western Digital company, by the way. Their IBM Desk Star were always the number one drive. I've still got IBM Desk Stars, as I said last week, that are still fully functional and great. And I would hands down say, if you're going to invest money, this is the best way to go about it. The price on these is good, $124 for 3 terabytes. Not that much difference. They're a little bit more expensive. 4 terabytes is $156. Again, quality in my book for the little bit of extra money that you're seeing here, I would definitely forget about the other guys. And these are actually, was mistaken, these are 7,200 RPM drives, so there you go. I think they make a 5,400 RPM drive too. Most of mine are the 5,400 RPM drives. But you want to just stay with if they say NAS on them, you're looking at the right stuff. So that would be my suggestion for hard drives. I'll open the floor here really quick and ask you guys if you have any questions. I told you we wouldn't go super long tonight. I want to keep these fairly short for you guys. And I told you that I had a good, better, best setup for backup. The final best, in my opinion, backup is to have a server in your house that does your backups, because you can do so much more with it. It's not just backing up photos. I back up everything to it. And I can't run down the hardware for you. I can, however, suggest all of the stuff for you to build a system on your own or have one built for you. I thought about offering to everybody, if you want a system like that, to let me know and I would build it for you and ship it. But therein lies the problem. Shipping computers is not an easy thing to do and really not suggested for a server. They need to be built and hand delivered or hand picked up, and very minimal vibration. If I was to put them on a UPS truck, I don't even know, if a system would make it in one piece. So if that is something you guys are interested in, if you want to build your own system, I'd be more than happy to give you a hardware list that I know works. And essentially it's just plugging things in. I mean, it is not difficult. You don't have to be a math genius or a scientist to build a computer. If you can use a screwdriver and plug things in, that's pretty much it. So, but yeah, if you want that, just let me know and I will address each of you separately and design something for you to use. Otherwise, the rest of the stuff works great. You can buy it off the shelf, plug it in, and go. Jamie asks if there is any recommendation for local backup software. I have never done like a software app for backup. Mainly, the only things that I have automated are like Resync, that copies things off. And I think you can get Resync for most of the NAS systems that we talked about, Synology and Drobo and QNAP. You can get apps for them. And the apps also are available for your desktop. And then you connect them together. And then the apps, you just add files and the apps take care of it. So I don't know of any desktop like software that does copies for you. I know there's like ghosting software and, to ghost a whole drive and do things like that. But they really don't, that doesn't make sense for copying off files. Plus, file copying apps like this use checksums that they make sure that when the stuff is copied, that the data integrity is preserved. So when it's copied to a new drive, it checks a checksum and says, hey, did that copy go okay? And it sends back the code and it says, yeah, that code matches. Okay, let's go to the next file. So I would highly suggest, like, if you're thinking about wanting automated copying, or if you want something to that level, that you look at the NAS systems and not those desktop hard drive bays, because a desktop hard drive bay is just going to be like, if you go to Best Buy again, And I didn't show like the external drives you can just go buy at Best Buy, because I've had them fail on me and I cannot recommend them for backups. I can recommend them for everyday storage of music and things like that, that if you lose it, you can download it again from iTunes or whatever. But I really cannot recommend it for backups of your photo. They just are too unpredictable. I flew by that wire for a long time. And now I have those drives. They're in here in my studio. I have my original copies on those drives, but I have backups. So if they die, which they will, I'm set. I buy another drive and I can go ahead. And at that point, I'll buy a NAS drive. So, and now I'll start keeping my stuff on a NAS disk in here and in the other room. But for me, it was get the backup system solid right first. So I bought a NAS, I built a NAS system myself to back up to, so I knew my backups were safe. And I just knew that any given day, one of these hard drives, I'm going to come in here in the morning and it's going to be gone. It just won't show up anymore. But I'll know I'm safe, got a copy. So, and I just copy things using the sync program. So it waits to see what's on the drive. If it's new, it copies it off to the server. And then from there, it's copied off to the cloud. So that's all automated on my end. But if I had a NAS box, I'd have an app over here running, such as Sync that I use. It'll be the same sort of app. I just tell it what folder I want to copy, and it copies it off to the drive automatically, and then refreshes the drive as the files are freshened. And there's some things that you can set on these apps. You can usually set them up to, tell them whether or not you want only the newest file to be put on there, or you want the app to ask to copy a file over a file, so that you don't accidentally copy, you rename a file and mess up the whole sequence. So, all these apps are different, but they're all the same, really. They're just, different interface, but they all have the same features pretty much. I know that doesn't answer your question as far as just out of the pocket. I would say if you don't buy a NAS system and you just buy a desktop system, you are the copy program usually. And I just use Finder or just use Windows Explorer to copy files off from by hand. So. Tonight's discussion is going to be fairly short, and it's going to be about online and cloud storage. And so if you've gone out there and you've looked, you've probably seen something like this site here that I'm going to show you. We'll go ahead and let's see if I can get this thing to work again. It just doesn't want to work. There we go. This is LifeWire. It's the first thing that comes up in Google. I did a search for online backup services, and there's 22 of them. This is a brand new review, by the way. I'll put this link out there if you want to read this. We're going to talk about a few of these. Mostly what I'm going to talk about with you guys is how to shop for an online backup service, not about each one. I'll let you kind of, it comes down to it. It basically all depends on you, your needs, what you like, your internet speed, and all sorts of different things. So we're going to talk about that a little bit coming up. One of the first things, though, I wanted to talk to you guys about is something that I missed last week in my roundup. And I want to talk about this really quick. I'm typing in things really quick over here. Let's see. I can get it right. Okay, there we go. All right, I got it. I'm going to bring it in. Here it comes. One of the most important things about computer backup, aside from the hard drives and all of the things that we talked about, and I cannot believe that I did not mention this to you guys. I feel so embarrassed, and it was right after the stream was over. I'm like, man, I got to talk to you guys about the most important part of all of this, and it is that your computer is plugged into a time bomb, and that's your outlet on the wall. What you don't realize is that when you plug in a computer into a wall, what happens with your power in your house, if your refrigerator comes on, your power fluctuates a little bit. When your power fluctuates and there's a little bit of draw, the immediate after effect is a little boost, because essentially the grid says, oh, they need more power, let's give them a little. Well, it's a little too late. They shoved too much power at you. Now you got a little surge. This boosting of power and cutting of power continually causes computers to die. If you've ever wondered, why did my computer just suddenly stop working? Or I got up the next day, it was working fine. I got up the next day and now it doesn't work. It's generally due to unclean power. The only way that you can get clean power without going to a full conditioner, which would be, they're around $5,000 to turn the power from the wall into a nice sine wave power. The best solution is a battery backup system for all of the computers in your house that have something that you want to keep on them. And if you want to get the most longevity out of a computer, put it on a battery backup. Here's why. It's not so much that the power goes out and you can still continue to work and you might not lose files, although that's a benefit and that's a cool thing. The main thing is that battery backup systems provide a steady amount of voltage. They have capacitors and batteries in them, and a voltage inverter. And basically what they do is when they're feeding power to your computer, if something like an appliance in the other room, an air conditioner kicks on, or the washer's going, and sometimes all these things are going at once, there's a drain on the overall system. The battery backup system will make up for that and make sure that that power stays at 120 volts or 110 volts or 115 volts, so that it's not fluctuating down to 90 volts. I've been in some houses where the voltage would go from 90 to 150. You're like doing nothing. And this can happen anywhere. It doesn't really matter where you are in the country. Doesn't matter who your service provider is. It just happens. So if you want your computer equipment to last for as long as it possibly can, put it on battery backup. These units cost a good one. Like I have 3 in this house now. I have 3. And I buy the Cyber Power. I have the 1500, this one for 184 right here, the Amazon Choice. Plug it in. Plug your computer peripherals in it and forget about it. I've had the one that's below me here has been with me now for almost 10 years. I have one in the server room I just bought that's a year and a half old. And then we have a small one for Danny's laptop in the other room, which is just provides enough power. It's like one of these little flat jobbies down here. I think somewhere, I mean, these are all the big boys, but it's fairly small like this one here. And for laptops, you don't need all that much. They run on power bricks that generally do a pretty good job, but they still don't have the big battery in them and the capacitor. Get yourself a battery backup system. My last computer lasted 7 years without incident, without a failure, and it is still going today. So another person has it today, and it's still going. This computer that I have now it's in its second processor, so it's 4 years old now. This computer has not been turned off for 4 years. My computers are on all the time. My server's on 24/7. So this conditioned power, while it's on, is giving my hard drives and my components and my monitors longevity. It's the greatest insurance that you can buy next to backing up your files. So get yourself a battery backup and get them on your systems. The Cyber Power ones are pretty good. APC makes some stuff. Just read the reviews. Read what people say is good, bad. Generally, when I'm reading reviews, I'll tell you, an easy way to look at reviews and understand what's going on. So if I see this one here, the Cyber Power for $335, and I see only 41 people have purchased this, and it only has 4 stars, it probably is okay, but it doesn't really have that much of a demographic yet for me to make a decision. But when I come down here and I see 3,453, well, this is their, for $109, 1,000 volts, that's pretty good, 600 watts. And they'll tell you, like, you know, how many peripherals that you can have hooked up at once. And my battery backup down here has a little meter on it that tells me how long everything will run if the power goes out. It'll tell me how much voltage it has, how much percentage of the battery is charging properly. It even has a USB plug that you put in the back of your computer and a little app that you can actually read out all the cool things that are going on the battery backup. So find one that fits your system. CyberPower, like I said, is pretty good. And you can usually tell if it's sold a lot, like this guy right here, the one I have. Let's see, I have this one here. 331 of these have sold with 4.5 out of 5 stars. That's pretty good. This is even better. 2,389 of them have sold, and it still has a rating of 4.5 stars. 3,000 have sold with, so CyberPower gets good ratings. So make sure you check that out for sure. All right, got that out of the way. Let's move on to the job at hand here. We're talking about backup online. Now you're going to get hardware to back up your stuff in your studio or in your house. That's important. But when you go to backup online, you got to go shopping at that point. And you got to read the fine print. So all of these companies that I'm going to review, they have their ins and their outs. Like I started out, I think basically when I first started this, I got Dropbox, you know, and my Google Drive. And then I decided, well, you know, 1 terabyte for Dropbox at $100 a year is okay, but it's not going to back up my photos. I have way more photos than that. I need something large. So you have to go to these online backup service companies. Some of them will accept your hard drive. So you take your hard drive out of your computer, you ship it to them, they copy off your hard drive and send it back to you. And if you're worried about that, don't be. There's insurance and everything. They're very good with it. A lot of companies don't do it anymore though, because what's happening is people are abusing that. So they're sending their drives out and then they're saying something was wrong with them when they came back when there really wasn't, and then they're demanding, you know, that they get another hard drive and they get their files back for free and blah blah blah. Anyways, a lot of companies don't do that. Now it's pretty much transfer online. So you have to have a pretty fast internet connection, but you don't need the fastest internet connection. You can schedule most of these to send your files overnight while you're sleeping, which is what I do. My backup comes on at 2 o'clock in the morning and it shuts off at 8 in the morning. So it runs for 6 hours overnight. And I'll show you a little bit about CrashPlan. That's what I use. But don't just go out and buy CrashPlan just because I have CrashPlan. Everybody's different, and it's going to just depend on what works best for you. So when you're shopping for these, read the fine print. Don't get roped in by free for the first year or $100 for the first year. Be very wary. Like I'm going to show you here. Let's look at. All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the uses for Dropbox and the uses for Google Drive. Kind of the prices that you see here: $99 a month for 10 terabytes of backup space. That's business level kind of LLC level, you know, corporate level stuff for moving a lot of files. It's not really a backup solution. I use Google Drive and I use Dropbox for kind of everyday transfers. There's WeTransfers as well out there. And I just use those for like, I got a file for a friend, like, you know, Janice, when you asked me for your logo, I put the finished logo on Dropbox and you can download it. That's what I use it for. I don't use it for backups other than I do back up my Lightroom catalog to it because it's, you know, doesn't take up a lot of space. But I also back that up to my main backups as well. So that's what I use Dropbox, WeTransfer, and Google Drive for, is just like my phone photos, you know, stuff like that. But I'm not going to put my raw files and stuff on there, and I'm not going to put my videos and all that kind of stuff. You're going to need a full backup company. So I did have Amazon for a while, and Amazon had like a Amazon Prime thing, which was really geared towards consumer level backups. So if you go to Amazon Web Services, this is more of like a business grade thing. Their online Amazon Prime So I think it's called Prime Backup. I think it's Prime Cloud, I think is actually what it's called. I don't know. They keep changing it. It's probably pretty much why I don't go with them anymore. Okay, so they've got Amazon Drive. Yeah, it's just original. So they've got things here like apps, photo storage, print, blah, 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 and you can per year. So currently, terabyte digital storage plan, $59 status. This would cost me like an arm and a leg for my storage. Now, it might be fine for you. You might have less than a terabyte. That's great. But consider the long run. Is your photo storage going to get smaller? Chances are it's going to get bigger because you're going to keep taking photos. We hope you are. Or you're going to be like me and start doing a lot of video, which is if 4K videos chews up a terabyte, pretty quick. We're talking some of the videos that I upload for my vlogs are 26 gigabytes for one video. So, I don't think that this makes a lot of money sense, really. If you get a terabyte, you fill it up, and you want to move to another store, you've got to basically get your files all back and move them all. There's no easy solution there. They just don't transfer from Amazon to some other backup. That's not how it works. So you'd have to download them and re-upload them. So Amazon was okay at the beginning for basic stuff, kind of like Google Drive and Dropbox, but they're not a serious storage plan as far as I'm concerned. Yes, they've got big servers. Their app, though, was really clunky. I didn't like their app. It didn't work well for me. Half the time it would, because of the sheer amount of files, like I would get to 40 or 50,000 files and it would just die because it couldn't handle that many files. It just didn't know what to do with 50,000 files. And here I'm trying to upload 250,000 files. So it really wasn't working out. So Amazon, it might work for you. It didn't really work for me. And that's just kind of my thing. Let's look at another big company, which is Backblaze. Now, a lot of professionals use Backblaze. I think the PPA gives a discount, I'm not sure. I thought what we do is just quickly look at like the pricing and tell you guys what you should look for when you're looking at this kind of stuff. So you look at unlimited data for your Mac and PC. Prices are per computer. That means that if you decide that, you have a laptop that has stuff on it, you have something else, you can't back those up. You've got to pay another price around. So a 2-year plan, $95 billed. That means that you're hooked for 2 years, no matter what. If you don't like their service in 6 months, too bad. You lost your $95. That's the way it works. 1-year plan, $50. Not bad, actually. $50 billed for a year, unlimited for one computer. That's not really a bad way to go. And when you're choosing these plans, think about that. I usually start with the smallest one. So I would start with the monthly plan of $5. Now, recently I've had to switch servers for my website and everything. And I bought a month because I'm a little gun shy right now. I don't know. I'm not happy with the people I'm with. I was told one thing, but now it's a completely different thing. So I basically, I agree, Janice. They're too expensive. Amazon, that is. So I basically bought a month of service from this company, and I'm going to run it at full bore for a month and just see if it can handle it. And I am blown away at how good it is. So I'm now purchasing a year. And I think that's the best way to go about this. And if a company doesn't allow you to do that, I think I would think twice about long-term commitments without being able to try, because there's so many, like I said, 22 online backup services. Carbonite's another good one. So some of these companies I've never heard of. Spider Oak, I've heard of Mozy before. Zool's Cloud, never heard of it. Live Drive, no. Acronis is a famous. Acronis is got a real good hard drive backup company. They've done hard drive backups for years, so I bet you they probably would be fairly good. But look, 5 terabytes, $240 a year. That's a lot of money. So anyways, you can look through these, get some ideas yourself. I will post this, like I have a running thing in the descriptions of the videos of hardware and software and all that kind of stuff, that I'm gonna make sure that all the videos have these links in them so you guys can check them out. So let's look at a newcomer on the block, iDrive. Now, I've heard a lot of good things about iDrive. They're certainly spending a lot of money right now to advertise on Google, because if you go and look up any backup service, iDrive is like right near the top. This is they bring up a great point here, because when you look at these, you're going to see things like this: basic, personal, and business. Now, you might think, well, I do my photography as a business, so I should sign up for the business, right? But generally, a business account, you can see, is only 250 gigabytes at $74, where a personal is 2 terabytes at $52 for the first year, mind you. And then they have that other price. That's what you're going to be paying at the end of the first year, which is still $70. Is not bad. But it's more than the business. And the reason is because the business has shared accounts. So what they're doing is, a personal account will give you one login, one account. That's all you get. You might be able to back up several different computers to that one account, but you're only going to get one login. Only one person's going to be able to control that. Where a business account generally is set up so that a team of people can back up all of their computers. So, Lori asked about what host that I went with for my website. I went with DreamHost, and I'm telling you, my site is so blazingly fast right now. If you guys go look at theexplorographer.com, or look at any of the partners that are with me right now, which is like LisaSpeakmanPhotography.com, and Lynn Wazicki's site, theilluminatinglens.com, or the maryphotographer.com. All these guys are with me right now. I've got all their sites moved over there, and they're just absolutely blistering fast now. It's really awesome. And I'm going to be doing a whole review on web hosts. So you guys, I think that'll be interesting for you guys to check out. And unfortunately for Bluehost, they are going to be included in that as well. So the business accounts, I would make sure you read this fine print and find out what the real differences is between the business and the personals and whatnot. Here, the personal looks pretty good at $70 for 2 terabytes. But remember, if you have 1.5 terabytes, by the time you are finished uploading 1.5 terabytes of data, you will be looking for 3 terabytes. That's how it works. So I went with CrashPlan. Now, CrashPlan has gone through a lot of growing pains, and right now they're not so good. And their prices are great. It's $59 a year for unlimited storage on your whole household, I think. Let me see here. Let me just look at the store real quick and I can tell you. All right, so there we go. So $5 a month for one computer. I have the family plan here, I think. No, wait, must be I think right now I just have this, the individual, because I'm only backing up one computer. My main system, my server is the only thing that gets backed up. So the way you can make a single individual system work for you is to have that NAS drive, like I was saying before, and have everybody in your family back up to that with their computers, and then you back up that to CrashPlan. So it is one computer, and you'll have access. You can pull those files back and distribute them out to your family. So that's one way to go to get around the system. Sorry about that, CrashPlan. I know you're not watching, so it doesn't really matter. Or you can go with the $149 a year. Now, this is great because it's a 1-year subscription, 2 to 10 computers. Everybody in your house can have their own account. They can all back up their stuff. You can actually back up between computers, which is kind of nice. So even though I don't use this feature, I could actually back up to CrashPlan, which would automatically back up to my server. I do it the other way around. I back up to my server first because it's fast, and then I back up to CrashPlan. I don't want to use up all that bandwidth. That's a lot of bandwidth of uploading and downloading files. So I need the bandwidth for doing like these sort of things with you guys. And if I'm backing up files in the background, that doesn't happen. So so I like CrashPlan. They have a little app that installs on your computer, and you just assign it the drives, tell it the folders to go. And if you change computers, which is really cool, if you build a new computer and you move all the hard drives over to the new computer and they're all like named the same thing, you can adopt the backup to your new system. And what it'll do is keep all the old files and start adding the new files and adopt the new system, which is a really handy feature. For me, everything kind of about this worked out really well. So you can see the business, unlimited online backup, $10 a month per computer, unlimited computers. That's $120 a month for one computer. So that's business again. You can see here, it's like manage other users. You don't need any of that. Stick with the individual or the family. And the free, if you just want to see how it works, the free just backs up to other, like it's a backup system. Like if you get a NAS system, you can learn how their like app works by using it to back up to your own system. So I could use this to back up to my main server if I wanted to, but I don't do that. I use Resync, which is super easy to do, but it does the same thing as their little app does. But if you want to see how it works, you can go that route. And you basically have to start with a 1-year subscription. So these guys don't have the try it and then buy it sort of thing. So you can do the online backup, as it says here, 30 days. So I guess you can basically try it out for 30 days for free. So that's not a bad deal. I've been with them for 5 years now. Lori, I don't know if you were here earlier, but I'm going to talk about Patreon and how you can do that thing that you asked about. So let's just really quickly, let's bounce over here and we're going to look at my system. And I'll show you what CrashPlan looks like. So this is my server, and this is a web page that looks at my server. So I can run all my apps from a web page. So this is my backup, CrashPlan Central. It's a little app that installs on my server. It'll install on a Windows or a Mac, same way. And essentially what I do is just add things to it. So I'm going to add tonight, I'm going to add a folder to this. So right now we're backing up the photo archive, which is a bunch of folders. We're going to add another folder to CrashPlan tonight. So I'm just going to I clicked on files. And as you can see here, it says the files that are currently backed up right there. It shows all of them with a check mark. Super easy, right? Stock art and all my videos in there. But tonight, I'm also going to add video renders. All right. So that's going to back up everything under the video renders folder. So we'll let that load. It's waking up the drive right now on the server. It's a little different from working on a Windows or a Mac machine. This is kind of like a smart box. So it puts the drives to sleep when they're not being used so it doesn't wear them. So we have to wait a second for everything to wake up and kind of come alive. Gives me a perfect time to get a drink. And it's either going to work or it's not going to work. So it may actually be indexing the files now that I clicked go. So yeah, it's indexing, I think, all of the files. So I'm just going to hit save and it's going to do its thing. And what it's going to do is you'll see this number over here, this 7.7 terabytes, which is currently just my photos. It's going to add to that. And now you can see with videos, it's adding these files. So now it's going through and scanning a complete list of files. And then once it has all those files indexed, tonight and at midnight, it will start to go through and copy them off. So yes, CrashPlan is fine with partitions. Like what you're seeing right now is actually 10 drives that are all partitioned on Linux. So it'll handle Linux partitions, anything. So it'll definitely handle the Mac just fine. Yep. In destinations, you can see here, we can send files to my friends. So I can back up to my friend's computer. They can install. So let me give you a scenario. They always say to back up on-site, off-site, and then cloud, right? So you could have, maybe your mom has a computer and you can plug in a hard drive to that. And at night, an app can run on their computer and you can actually back up to their computer to an external drive that you purchase and put on their computer. So you can, it's pretty cool. It's pretty easy to operate. Just, click the button and go pretty much. Nothing too difficult about it. And this just runs in the background on my server, but this would run on a Windows machine or a Mac machine right on the desktop. I used to run it on my desktop, but now I back up to the server and then back up from the server to CrashPlan rather than tie up CPU cycles and all that kind of stuff here on my main system. So right now, CrashPlan kind of has my vote of approval on it. There's still a lot of things about their app no, you cannot send your 2 million photos over to my server, Lori. Sorry. Nice try though. Well, let me put it this way. You can send them over if you can figure out how to. How's that? But I'm not going to help you with that. But anyways, and you can see right down here, I actually have inbound backup is disabled, so I apologize. But yeah, so essentially, if you wanted to run this on your desktop and you didn't have a server, you could do that as well and just run a NAS box where you're backing up to that for internal storage and then backing up to the cloud from there when you're not around. So you leave your computer on, it runs overnight, whatever, and does it. While the computer sleeps, it actually will run it even while it's sleeping. So it's kind of a nice feature. So, I mean, the main thing here is that you have your computers on your basic production computer that you have your files on when you get them and you process them. Then you have a backup system, which is a NAS drive or a box of hard drives or a unraid system like I have in the other room that's running all this stuff that you see here. Or the final step is, I'm sorry, not or, but and the final step is backing up from whatever you back up to then to a cloud system. So you have triple redundancy. That is considered in the industry to be safe. Triple redundancy. Like they have done studies that rarely, if ever, has 3 things all fail at the same time. So, and probably if 3 things fail all at the same time, you won't care. So at that point, but that's CrashPlan. Any questions at all on cloud services? I'm gonna, like I said, I will put this link to LifeWire if you want to do some research in here. $60 a year for CrashPlan is pretty good for peace of mind, knowing that your files are being stored. Just remember though, $60 a year. If you stop paying it, they don't hold on to your files until you start paying it again. So it's one of those things, like, kind of resigned to the fact that I'm tied to this place for $60 a year until I decide to build a cold storage unit and copy things off onto hard drives and then lock them away someplace, because that's really my only alternative now to off-site backup instead of the cloud. So $59 probably when I'm done with my photography, when I'm ready to retire. At that point, there'll be, probably I'll burn all my photos so that they're worth something at that point. Cause I don't know. That's something that I don't usually think about too much. All I care about is if something bad happens, I want to make sure I can get everything back. And computers, we can only take so much good care of. If lightning strikes my house or my house burns down, there's not much that I can do about the 2 systems that are here. If a power surge comes through and it wipes out one computer, I've got another computer that has everything on it. And chances of both of them going is pretty slim, especially because they're both on separate circuits, separate backup units and so forth. And if all of that goes to heck, I've got the cloud service that I can put things back together with that. All right, guys, I have a Travel Obscura meeting to get ready for. I have to finish my beer before that happens. And then I have another meeting after that. So I'm going to take off. Thank you guys so much for all your support and hanging out with me on Patreon. I hope you guys are finding good value in this stuff. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.